Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today I'm talking to Dr. Katie Williams from the Dr. Williams podcast, and we're talking about fear, wellness, law of attraction. Is your dominant vibration fear or is it wellness? You might be surprised. Welcome to 5D Channels and Chats with Rachel Chamness. As a shamanic channel and mentor, I'll be sharing wisdom and healing from higher dimensions through channeling beings of light. You will also hear liquid Reiki shamanic sound healing, channels between intuitives, and discussion on higher dimensional healing and channeling. You'll find links and more in the show notes, so be sure to check them. You can find me at soundwavesheal.com and my Facebook group, 5D Daily Spiritual Healers in Higher Dimensions. Today's podcast comes from my YouTube show, Ascension and 5D Chats, where I speak to other intuitives about ascension. Hi, Dr. Williams. How are you?
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm so excited to be here. So Dr. Katie Williams is a psychologist. She's a law of attraction expert, and she has a Dr. Williams podcast, which she so graciously had me on. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
My career has gone a little bit different than I thought it would. Most people don't go and get their doctorate and then head down a spiritual path, but that's the way that it's gone for me. So I do have my basis in psychology. I spent the majority of my adult life studying psychology. But once my spiritual awakening started, I realized that I really was more on a spiritual path. And that's really what I like talking about. So that's really the focus of the podcast and my entire life.
That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about how fear is still manifesting for us in ways we might not notice or ways we haven't really thought about.
I like this idea of talking about fear just because I feel like it's showing up in ways that we don't even realize it's showing up. Like,
Yes.
I'm just getting over a cold. And even though that's like a simple thing, we all kind of go through it. I realize that I created that. And I think it has a basis in fear because I started noticing like my kids had like stuffy noses and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh no, they have a cold. Right. And so all of a sudden I'm starting to fear like kissing them or being too close to them because I don't want their germs. And it's literally that fear that manifested into me having it. It's really not the germs. It was the fear.
I also see a lot when I'm working on people, when I do my shamanic sound healing, that I see that a lot of illnesses, and of course we know this, have emotions that they're connected to, like clearing the emotion clears the illness, or a large physical problem can have an emotional root, or sometimes spiritual, it can be all kinds of things. And I clear that kind of stuff a lot. So that also makes sense in that way. Not even just fear, but anything that you could be manifesting from some old fear even.
Yeah. Well, anything really negative, any kind of negative emotion is manifesting negative physical responses in a physical way in your body, holding that negative emotion. Now, when you do that, when you do the clearing, when you're doing the sound healing, tell me about that, like vibrationally. How is that making an impact? I'm so curious about that.
Okay, there's a word for this. It's called entrainment. Entrainment is when a vibration affects another vibration or some type of sound or beat. For instance, heartbeats. So when you hold hands with someone and your heartbeats begin to go into sync, that's entrainment. Or if you have a room full of grandfather clocks and they're all at different speeds when you turn them on, when you come back a few hours later, they'll all be in sync. They'll be at the same, tick tock, tick tock. That's what entrainment is. And in the same way with sound healing, when you use a vibration against a weaker vibration, it can tune it up. If you think about tuning like a guitar, in the same way, sound healing can tune up something that's out of tune. So if you think about how everything is a vibration and everything is affected by sound, because in essence, it's a wave-like sounds. That's kind of why I call my business Sound Waves Heal. Then when you send this sound to something that's weaker, it tunes it up. So if you have something that's supposed to be 500 hertz, let's say, which is a measurement of sound, let's say that is supposed to be whatever your liver is supposed to be vibrating at. I don't know what the real number is, but let's say it's 500 hertz, but your liver's like not doing that well, and it's like 496. Well, if I bombard that liver with the 500 hertz, it will tune it up and it will clear the problem. So that's kind of
Wow.
the idea of how sound healing works. And that's the same way that a Rife machine works, which is a vibrational healing machine, which I also have one that I use for personal use. And it also works in this way with sound healing, only it's more like the vibration, you don't hear it.
So you made me think of a couple different things. Like when you were talking about the heartbeat and kind of like syncing up, that made me think of, when infants are born and they're not doing well and they go skin to skin with the mother and they sync up with the
Yeah.
mom. It made me think of that. And that's healing for the baby. And it's done miraculous things, right? I mean, babies have
Yeah.
overcome incredible obstacles after being born just by having that. And I never really thought about it vibrationally, but that's exactly what's happening.
Well, think
And
about
then,
this. If they come out and they're being held by a different, like a doctor, a midwife, and it's changing their heartbeat to be more in sync with that person, it may feel very scary. I mean, they're all of a sudden everything's changed for them and they don't have that.
yeah,
It's almost like the earth heartbeat is their mom's heartbeat, maybe at that point.
wow, that's interesting. That's really interesting to think about.
Yeah.
The other thing that you said that I thought was great was we were talking about a weaker frequency. So when you're noticing in somebody, and that must be how illness or injury or something like that presents when you're analyzing it, present in a weak kind of form. And you come in being the dominant vibration. And that made me think of law of attraction because that's how you create, right? That's how you get what you want is by being the dominant vibration.
That's
Because if
right.
you come into a room, there's all these different vibrations happening. But if you're the dominant one, then you get to direct it. So basically, I want to know, how are you making sure that you are dominant over that other vibration? What is it you do to make sure of that?
Well, to be honest, I do it in a totally different way. I'm not doing it consciously. I'm just using like shamanic techniques to channel that. So I make the intention. Let's say I'm doing a session and I feel that there's a problem here in the body, it needs to be cleared. I don't even usually go deep into what the problem is. I just say, "Hey, can we heal this?" I'm just talking to who I'm channeling and they're like, "Yes." So then my intention is just bring through whatever will heal it, and that's what we do. It's light that changes blocks like as little dark spots, is kind of how I see it. Then it's the light that removes it. But probably what's really happening
Okay.
is it's entraining it. It's using that frequency to tune it up.
That's powerful that you're setting the intention and the intention of the other person is matching yours. And there's an expectation there. There's an expectation for healing.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Which
I'm
is
working with these high vibrational beings, so I just assume they know what they're doing, right? They're
right. Well, it's been working. So
It's definitely an expectation there that they'll fix
yeah.
it. I don't have to know too much or like think too hard. I'm all in.
Right. Right. Yeah. Which brings us to beliefs and expectations, right?
Right. Well, a big thing is like, how much do we really come across a situation where we didn't bring it to ourselves with what we expected or what we believe is the only answer of how it's going to happen? And no matter how advanced you are in the law of attraction, I've been studying it for over 20 years too. I catch myself doing it all the time. I catch myself thinking or being stuck in a belief like, oh, I'll never change that, or I just can't change that thing. Or, all these beliefs, they become what is my reality. And that was one thing I saw so heavily in the last retreat is we really, really got it so much deeper. We were talking to the elementals, the fae, and they were just showing us how this expectation manifests. And it's very much like what we were talking about earlier, like when you go home to visit your family and they have this expectation of you that's maybe decades old, and you feel like, wow, I feel like I'm 15 again. Like, what's happening? It's like their expectation for you to act a certain way is so strong. And the bigger family you have, the more you've got more people expecting that. It's like, it's so hard to fight against, That's like
Yeah.
one good example.
So when I was working at community mental health, which is a really difficult environment, I was sick all the time, like all the time. And I realize now looking back that I was not helping myself because I had this belief that if I was in proximity to anybody who was sick, I was going to catch it. And I would say that to people. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't be around anybody who's sick or I catch it. And I was so upset when people would come to work sick because then I would get it and then I'd have to be out sick. And it was this whole thing. But it really was my belief. And since I have been working with law of attraction and studying and practicing it, I've changed that because I had to. Like, I hated it. I hated being sick all the time. And I was afraid of being around people. I mean, my own kids, I just mentioned, like, I still have some residual fear there where if they're sick, I don't want to kiss them on the mouth. And sometimes I'll force myself to do it anyway because I'm like, no, I don't have that belief anymore. That's in the past. But I was sick a lot. I was calling in all the time. I'm surprised I kept my job, to be honest, because I was very sick. And it was because of my belief. I believed I was going to catch it. And so I did.
That's really interesting because I have a similar situation with a friend of mine who says, that her boss is so scared of getting sick that if you come to work sick, you get in so much trouble. But yet it's not like you get sick time. So there's like a whole problem there of, you can't go to work if you're sick at all because she'll get sick. I bet that's also her belief.
Right. Yeah, it's not helpful.
I thought it was really interesting, the idea you had about the medieval healers and their expectations.
Yeah. Well, I just started thinking about even like present day, like doctors and nurses. These are people that are going into an environment full of sick people, and yet they're not getting sick. And I mean, today we have, PPE and we have all these things to protect us when we're there amongst sick people. And during the pandemic, I mean, you saw the suits that people were wearing, like it was crazy. But back in the day, when medieval times, and there was religious people and the plague and everything, and they're in there treating people and they're not covering their face or fearful of catching it because they're there to heal. Their focus, their vibrational offering is one of wellness, and it keeps them protected because what you give is what you get back. It just makes perfect sense.
And how interesting it is that in times of large contagions of plagues and whatnot, that you do see more healers getting sick because they're believing it. Like the bubonic plague. I mean, I bet there was more sickness happening there than in medieval times, or it's a different kind of belief, expectation, or wellness versus illness.
Well, and thinking vibrationally, at some point, you got to think that something's going to creep in. You're surrounded in this environment and all this vibration happening around you of sickness. At some point, some fear might creep in, even if you were initially focused on wellness.
Have you ever done that exercise where you have a group of people and one person is the guinea pig and everyone thinks a good thought about them, and then that one person, the guinea pig, has to try and think a bad thought about themselves? Have you ever done that?
No.
It's wild. So if you have, like, let's say you could just have 5 people, one person tries to think a bad thought about themselves while everyone else is thinking good thoughts about them. You cannot do it. And you can do it the other way. It's not as fun. Everyone thinks a bad thought about you and you try to think a good thought about yourself and you can't. It's the same
That's
sort of thing.
amazing. I love that. I
Yeah.
totally want to try that now. I'm a games person. Like, I want people to come over and play with me. So now I'm totally going to try that.
It's crazy. It really shows you how other people's vibration, when it's synced up, can really make a big difference. And I've done some things where I visualized with another person, like we were going into a situation where we knew something was likely going to happen that was going to be aggravating. So then we just sat in the car and together we said, you know what's going to happen? It's going to be great. Instead of what we expect, this is going to happen and we're going to all have fun. It's going to be a beautiful lunch and we won't be aggravated or triggered. And it was wild. That absolutely happened. It was the opposite of every other experience we ever had. And I just feel like doing it in numbers is a big thing.
That's what I know to be as segment intending, where every period of your day is broken up into segments. And if you can consciously have awareness of it and intend how it's going to go before you go into it, you could literally create a perfect day. But it takes energy and focus. But that's what you did. You intended for that segment to go well, and then it did.
Now, I do this all the time because, I used to be an opera singer. So I used to do like these intense visualizations where I would just focus on that 10-minute audition, and I would just focus on it going so well, like I'm really in this zone, I'm feeling so good. You really have to think about your feelings, obviously, the law of attraction, you know, and I'm even thinking to myself, wow, this is going perfectly. Like everyone's smiling. I feel like I'm in slow motion. Every part that I'm singing is just perfect. I feel like it's so fun. And that's how I turned around my auditions. They were really, really terrible, and then I turned them around until they were like really good. I mean, I really became like an expert auditioner, and that's all I did was learn how to use visualization. Probably the same thing you're calling it, segment intending.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. I mean, we have all the power. It's just a matter of actually putting in a little effort and creating it. But as far as wellness, it goes for wellness also. Like if you were going to be going into a room full of sick people, you could do the same thing. You could segment intend that. But if you have a really strong belief, though, that is going to overshadow that, it probably won't work because your beliefs are so powerful and anchored. They're thoughts that you continue to think over and over and over again. There's a lot of power there. So even if you have this belief that if you're in a room full of sick people and you go in there, you're going to catch it, and then you segment intend that it won't go that way, I mean, you could maybe get better at it, and that might be a good way to challenge your belief. But those beliefs, that's really where the root of the problem is right there.
Yeah. And turning them around is not that easy.
No, it's not. No, you have to kind of be gentle with yourself, don't you? Go easy.
Yeah, you know what? I used to also teach voice lessons, and one thing I really learned doing that is that one thing that happens is when you decide to change something, when you say, I'm going to stop saying the negative, I'm going to start saying the positive instead, for instance, in a situation, then that's when you start to realize how many times you're saying the negative thing. And then you'll start to say, it's worse now, but it's not worse. It's better. It's just that you have now noticed it. But now that
Yeah,
you've noticed it, now you can stop. You're actually almost there, but it feels like it's worse.
I totally know what you mean. Even when you start to do this deliberate creation with law of attraction, and then you fall, right? You're feeling so good. You're in the vortex and everything's coming to you. And then you have like a bad day and it feels worse than it used to because now you know what you know. You can't unknow it and you know what's happening. So it does feel like you're falling harder, but really it's not because you know how to get back up there again. Knowledge makes a big difference.
Yeah,
And
and they usually
awareness.
say that sometimes people quit when they're almost there.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
it does seem to get harder. I wonder how much of that is because you now notice every little thing so that you can change it. That's why you notice it.
It could make you go crazy too. I mean, if you're like, oh, all these bad things are happening and I know I'm creating it, and give yourself a hard time. But really, this should be something that's easy, and efforting can work against you. If it feels like it's effort to make something happen, it's probably not downstream. And you always want things to be downstream. It should be fun and light.
Let's go back to what we were talking about before because I think it's kind of interesting to think about. So, what do you do when you are with people who have this negative feelings or negative expectation of you, and it's weighing on you so heavily? It's harder to fight against 5 people or 3 people who have a negative expectation of you, and here you are trying to do the right thing, not think of the wrong thing, trying to be the best attractor you can,
Yeah.
and how other people can affect you in that way.
Well, if you can focus on one thing that's going really well, those other 3 or 4 things will match up eventually because that's the vibrational offering that you have. Because if you're going to focus on the one thing that makes you feel good, that feeling is going to grow and gain momentum. Those other things will eventually be engulfed by it and become good things also. It's when you focus on the negative things that momentum grows and that kills the one good thing that you have going for you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, you're right. It's the dominant vibration that you're fighting
Yeah.
against in the room. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could just take a hold of the situation. If everyone in the room is so negative and you're the positive force and you feel outnumbered, Could
100%.
you do something to bring them into the present moment? Break that maybe?
It's like you said, being the dominant vibration. Because think about Jesus. Jesus is a wonderful example of a dominant vibration. People couldn't even be sick in his presence. They were healed because that was his vibrational offering in that space. And he was dominant. He was so dominant that he didn't see their illness. And they believed it so much that they took it on. They took the wellness from him. But every time he came into a space, he was the dominant vibration. You don't have to do anything except be that vibration, right? Just be that feel good vibration, and that will dominate over negative every single time.
I love that. That's so good. Patterns and expectations. In the same way that we often feel that other people are holding the wrong expectation of how we can act, we can also do that for other people just by doing what people do all the time, complain about their spouse or their mother or whoever, and then they're holding that person in a vibrational match where it might be harder for them to fight against it when they're in your presence. So it's not about that your thoughts like could affect them in their everyday, although it might, depending on how strong they are in their beliefs, but that when they're in your presence, you could affect them, even without realizing it, just thinking, well, it's just a little complaining. I was just releasing some stress, you know?
Well, and that's all that really matters is your interaction with them, right? That's the part that you have control over. You can't really control how they interact with everybody else. But say it's a coworker and no one in the office likes this person because they're so negative or whatever it might be. You can literally have a different experience with that person by expecting them to act differently in a positive way. Then you're going to be like, oh, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, Susie's great. We had this wonderful conversation and she was super upbeat, but everybody else has a different experience. But it's because you're expecting it to go differently.
That's happened to me before where I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right?
Really? Everyone thinks that? Because I don't see that. And you're like,
which says a lot about you, that you're pulling out the good from people.
If you can spend a few moments thinking about how well things are going to go before you work with someone who's difficult, you will see the difference. I do that with loved ones that I find difficult, you know, but to think about how it's going to go really well before, and that helps a lot.
You know, as a therapist, I probably would do that differently now because I didn't have this knowledge when I was acting as a therapist. And now I would do that. I would sit down before and have like a pre-session where I kind of create the session that I would like to have for this person, knowing what it is they want to work on and the improvements that they want to have in their life. And then I would visualize that and segment intend it going that way because that is empowering to them and holding them in all positivity.
You know, that's a really good point. As coaches and as healers, that's something that we could do is before we begin the session or whatever it is with a client, whatever you do out there, whoever's watching, is to take a few minutes and intend how it's going to go. We're really going to get to the root of this problem. We're really going to find out what it is and we're going to eradicate it. And this person's going to come back and say, wow, I feel so much better.
Yeah. That's really where our power is in that moment. Being that for that person, just by holding them to their
highest
greatest self. Yes, because it's there and you're tuning into that when you're doing readings and you're helping people anyway, but doing it pre-session and then doing it live in the moment, that's incredibly powerful.
I do EFT, emotional freedom technique. It's the tapping where have you ever heard that? I've been doing that for a really long time. I learned how to do it maybe 30 years ago. I did it for myself. And I still occasionally do it with people. I think it's really helpful for people who really want to dive deep with shadow work. And one thing that I learned when I was learning about it, I did a lot of learning, is that you can do this sort of EFT, this clearing for a problem that is aggravating you about someone else. So I think there was an example of like that the husband or the spouse was doing some really aggravating thing. It was just driving them crazy. And she wanted to do a session on him to make him stop doing that thing. And they were like, no, you do it on you to stop reacting to that. And she did it on herself. And what happened is he stopped doing it, because what happens is you are fixing your own vibration, and then they have to match that in your presence.
Absolutely. That's how relationships heal. And that's why you don't ever have to end a relationship. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, because you know what's right for you. But it's actually possible to change the entire dynamic of a relationship just by you focusing on you, because you have your vibrational offering, and your partner or whoever you live with, whoever it might be, has to either match that and raise up where you are, or they go away, because that's how law of attraction works. They can't be within that presence with that vibrational offering unless they match it or go somewhere else.
That's really neat. And it's really true. I've also been to healers where they were like, well, we don't need to work on your child. We can just work on you, and that will help him not do that anymore.
Oh my gosh. I was a child therapist for 3 years, and it was the hardest job I've ever had, because parents bring their kids to you and they drop them off and they go, fix my kid. And the whole time you're like, there's nothing wrong with your kid. I need to talk to you.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do that, because that's not the role, that's not the job. But that's really what needed to happen, is I needed to talk to the parents, because the child was representing the vibration of the home life.
Right.
Child.
When they say that children are showing you how you're feeling, that's exactly true. When you're totally stressed out, when you're overworked, you're tired, your kids will misbehave because they're just reacting to all the emotions in your field.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I really am always talking about is that as healers and as conscious people on the planet who want to be healthy, we can really get stuck. I've got to eat these things that are not touched by all of this negative, poisons in our atmosphere and our world. I mean, it is a very poisoned world. And I know that I'm very guilty of this, where I have a hard time eating something if it's not organic. I know where it came from. Meanwhile, there's probably all kinds of toxins all over the place everywhere I go. But I'm worried about the thing I'm eating, which is a valid thing, but maybe worrying too much. And what if we just intended that and really believed that everything we ate would just serve us or just not touch us in any bad way?
So this reminds me of the topic around science, because science and food are very closely related. But depending on the study, the information offered changes, right? Think about eggs. Eggs were so good for you at first, right? Oh, eat your eggs. They're a great source of protein. And then it was like, no, eggs are bad cholesterol. Like, don't eat eggs. And then it was back to, no, eggs are good for you again. And it just really depends on what the parameters of the studies are and what they're trying to promote socially with food. And organic is a really good example of that. And I'm not trying to poo-poo anything on organic. I think organic is great, but it also is more expensive, isn't it?
Well, it's not subsidized by the government.
Well, that's true, but it's also a way to promote making money.
Right, sure.
If you say that something is good for you, and then you can put this nice price tag on it.
It's gluten-free.
Yeah. I want it to be better for my body, so I'm going to pay the extra to make it better for my body. But it all comes down to what you believe about it. And I mentioned to you before that Abraham Hicks says that something like cardboard could fuel your body if you believed it would. It comes down to what you believe. So if you are eating or drinking something that you believe is bad for your body, that's the worst thing you could do. So if you are eating at McDonald's and the whole time you're like, oh my gosh, this is so bad for me.
Or ice cream.
Or ice cream or cake or anything, sugar, fat. I mean, if you're putting it in and you're having those feelings and those beliefs about it, then it's going to result in that way. But if you could literally believe that it's fueling your body and serving you in a positive way, then it would.
It would. I know this is the hardest thing for me. I'm like,
it is hard.
This is my biggest thing where I'm like, I know that if I were to just flip my mindset, but it's like, I have really built up that mindset over so long. It's like I have to chip away at it. But I know that it's kids.
when we're kids, right, we start learning what's healthy and what's not. My kids talk about it all the time. Oh, I need to eat something healthy now because I had something not so healthy. And I try to tell them, well, if you decide it's healthy for you, it will be. But does that make you feel weird? Because it makes me feel weird saying it as a parent.
Oh my gosh. You know, the first thing I thought, if I said that to my kid, like, what would happen? My kid would just eat sugar all day long. They'd be like,
I know. And you saying it, you don't believe it. You're trying to promote them doing it, but if you don't believe it, that's a vibrational offering. It's not really helpful. So yeah, it's one of those things you got to weigh.
I know that this is possible. I know people that do this and have zero problems, but it's so hard for me because it's just something I have studied since I was 20. I mean, I've been studying it forever, like healthy eating, what's good, what's bad. I've done every different kind of eating plan, like, oh, this is what I should eat. Oh no, that's terrible. I'm doing the total opposite now.
You have a conundrum because you've been studying law of attraction for 20 years and healthy eating for 20 years, and really they're in opposition in that way.
It is. You're right. It's true. I'm always working towards it. It's like, I know it's going to get there.
Next time we talk, I want to hear about all your healthy ice cream.
Okay. Well, Katie, thank you for coming on. This was really fun. I want to tell everybody where you can reach Katie at drwilliamspodcast.com. And you can find her on social media. Tell us all your social media platforms.
All of them: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube.
Wow. And tell everybody about your coaching sessions.
Yes, I offer one-on-one law of attraction coaching sessions, co-creation or personal alignment sessions. And I also have a Patreon. So if you want to be a member of that, I have a lottery where you can win a session with me every month. I pick a name and that's a free session. So if that's something that you'd be interested in doing, I encourage you to sign up.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for being on. That's
really it was fun. My pleasure. Really, so much fun with you. Always have fun with you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming on. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you are a healer or spiritual entrepreneur, present or future, I'd like to invite you to my Facebook group, 5D Daily, Spiritual Healers in Higher Dimensions, where I'll be live for more discussion and questions on Thursdays. I'll put the link in the show notes. I'm Rachel Chamness at Sound Waves Heal.